Hey, it's Jen. Are you a woman who feels overworked, undervalued, and underappreciated? Are you tired of wishing your boss would just get it that you can't handle any more on your plate? Are you frustrated and at your wits' end with how to get your spouse to do their part in the household? If this sounds familiar, then this podcast is for you.
Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things and move from being other-led to being self-led so you can live a life you love. Welcome to the Self-Led Woman Podcast.
Hey, it's Jen. If you're a woman who's feeling underappreciated, undervalued, and overworked, or maybe you're tired of wishing your boss would stop overloading your plate, or perhaps you're at your wits' end trying to figure out how to get your partner or spouse to do their part of the housework. Maybe you feel like if you stop doing all of these things, everything would fall apart. Maybe you've tried working harder to just show people how much you do and how much you should be valued. You might have started staying late at work or working through lunch to get it all done. You may have resorted to yelling at your spouse or partner, maybe unexpectedly, in an attempt to get them just to do their piece. You might be skimping on sleep and other self-care just to get it all done. But you likely found that none of these have worked. And you are just as stressed out and overloaded as before, but now you likely feel bad about yelling at your spouse, are angry that your boss doesn't get it, and you might feel depleted from working so much and lack of sleep, lack of healthy meals, and not doing your other self-care. It doesn't have to be this way. There's a way to change all this. There are 3 things that almost every professional busy woman who feels overworked, undervalued, and underappreciated does that keeps her stuck feeling this way. And so I'm going to talk about those today. One is they tend to people please and attempt to be liked and appreciated. This might sound like saying yes when they really mean no. They rarely speak up about their needs, wants, or things that are bothering them in order to keep the peace or avoid conflict or just get along. They tend to live from a to-do list that is made based on other people's wants, needs, and demands. And they're struggling to keep up with it all, let alone meet their own needs and wants. But here's the thing. When you focus on people pleasing, you're just showing people that you're willing to do whatever they want to get their appreciation and their approval. And this often leads to you being taken advantage of. When you don't express your concerns, your needs, and your wants clearly, people don't recognize or really realize that you have important needs, concerns, and wants, so they don't even attempt to address them. And then you feel unseen and unheard. When you let others control your to-do list and thus your workload, you end up with more work than you can handle, often things that you don't like, with little time or energy to meet your own needs and wants. You end up feeling depleted and unfulfilled. The good news is there's another way. And so I want you to take a moment and look around. Look at women like Brene Brown, Emma Watson, Viola Davis, Lizzo. None of those ladies are people-pleasing or doing what none of those ladies are people-pleasing or doing what they need to do just to be liked. They all speak up, they speak their truth, and they express their concerns, both in their smaller circles as well as in the world at large. And they share about their wants and needs clearly. They all are standing in their truth, and their actions, more often than not, align with their values and priorities. From that, these women have all done and continue to do amazing things, not only for themselves, but for the world. but they do it on their terms instead of everyone else's. Most of all, these women are well respected and admired because of their clarity, courage, and boundaries, and their tendency to speak up and speak out. So, how do you do this for yourself? I'm about to share a short script of how to get started doing this in your workplace. Essentially, it comes down to setting boundaries. Boundaries communicate what is okay for you and what is not okay for you. In order for other people to value and respect you and your wants and needs, you need to clearly tell them where this line is for you. Here's what most people do. Most people just assume that others should just know what is okay for them and what isn't. But the problem is people aren't mind readers. And so the only way for someone to really know what your needs and wants are, what's okay for you and what's not okay, is for you to clearly communicate directly what you need, to communicate what your experience is. I get why maybe you haven't done this in the past, right? You were likely taught as a young girl and even encouraged as an adult woman not to set boundaries, to just keep the peace and get along. So that this can be uncomfortable at first. And you might even fear being called a bitch or having people not like you. And it's true, some people might call you a bitch and might not like you. But I encourage you to think back to Brene Brown or Emma Watson or Viola Davis or Lizzo. There are definitely people who don't like those women, right? And they may even think they're bitches. But there are millions who love and respect them and their work. And in fact, by showing up authentically as themselves and clearly communicating not only their wants and needs, but what is okay for them is what and what is not okay for them, people respect them and admire them. And the people who don't just are part of their circle, and that's okay. So now that you can see how boundaries help you, I'm about to share a short script that you can practice so you can communicate your boundaries more clearly at work. So, something I hear that's really hard for people is when your boss is piling more and more work on your already overloaded plate. And so, I want to share a short script for how you can deal with that. And so, let's say your plate is full and your boss stops by and is trying to give you all this extra work to do. What you can do is you can say, I mean, if this is true, right? Some variation of, I'm really happy to do that. But first, I need your help looking at my workload to figure out what I need to deprioritize so I can get this done. What that does is it lets your boss know that you value getting your work done. You value doing good work. And it lets them know that your plate is already full, especially because sometimes bosses don't know. And if they see that, oh, having you do this task means you won't get this bigger thing done, then they might actually find another option for the task that they had in mind. Sometimes they won't, but it's important that you let them decide that. So then if things don't get done, they understand the risks that they took by assigning that task to you. In doing this, you're not actually saying no to your boss, but you're just inviting them into a conversation about how to manage your workload effectively with all of the things they want you to do and to still be able to do the good job that you value. So now you have a script for how to communicate boundaries directly to your boss about your workload. And even though I teach like at least 5 other ones in my programs, this is a nice start for you to get going and practice. This is a strong first step towards moving from being other-led to being self-led. So let me ask you, do you want to continue being overworked, undervalued, and underappreciated? Or are you ready to make a change so that you can step into your own personal power and live a life you love while also still caring for others in a compassionate way? If you're ready for a change, I'd like to invite you to join the priority notification list to be among the first notified when I roll out my program, The Self-Led Woman Way, this winter. The link is in the show notes, so be sure to check it out and register today. Take care.